Hey everyone, and welcome back. I'm Rick Fussell, and this is the Ingrain Workshop. In today's video, we're going to be replacing the sump pump in my lift station that takes the black water from my septic tank system and pumps it up to my drain field or my leach field. That's coming up next here at the Ingrain Workshop. The first thing you're going to have to do is locate your lift station, and chances are you've probably got a weatherproof electrical outlet installed somewhere in the vicinity of your lift station. As you can see, mine in the bottom left-hand corner, that's the lift station alarm and the outlet which powers the sump pump, and that's where the lid or the cover to my sump pump is located. And you might have to dig down, a few inches. I think mine's probably about 6 inches under the ground. And you can feel it pretty much immediately as soon as you take your shovel. You can hear the concrete lid. Most are going to be made out of concrete. They're almost in the shape of like a manhole that the water accumulates in. And this is the overflow again from your septic tank. So you have an inlet and an outlet in your lift station. The inlet is the black water that's coming from your septic tank, and then the outlet is where the pump is discharging it to your drain field or leach field. So the first thing you've got to do is locate the top and get the top of your lift station off. And your lift station should be located between the end of your septic tank and your drain field or your leach field. That's typically where your lift station is, right between those two. And most lift stations will have both a light and an audible alarm that will let you know as soon as there's probably been a malfunction with your pump and the black water level inside the lift station reaches a certain level. The alarm will go off. Like I said, there's an audible alarm and a light that lights up when the pump has malfunctioned, letting you know that you need to address the situation. So after I enlisted the help of my brother-in-law, we were able to get to the top of the lid. There's a hook on the top of the lid, and we just used a ratchet strap and the shovel handle and basically just lifted the lid off the lift station. And you can see here that the level of the black water inside the lift station is pretty much at the top. And I am going to have to take and go get a submersible pump. This is a pump that I use to pump out water out of our swimming pool. It's not a sump pump. It's strictly just a small submersible pump. And I'm just going to pump the black water down enough that I can get to the union fitting that I need to so I can disconnect the sump pump and the pump riser. So here I'm just submersing the submersible pump just down far enough to get the water out that I need to take out the sump pump, and I'm discharging it with a flexible hose just directly on top of my drain field. That way the water will drain at the same location as my drain field. You just want to be very careful when you're discharging black water. Now I have the water, the black water, drained down far enough that I can get in here and work on the union. And I'm just going to take a pipe wrench and use the pipe wrench to just break the seal on the union. And once I get it loose, then I can just hand loosen the union, which will separate the sump pump from the drain field side. And as soon as I break that connection, you'll see all the water flow back from the drain field side because it's at a higher elevation, which is the whole purpose of needing a sump pump to pump it up and into the leach field. At this point, I'm going to lift the riser up, and the first thing you'll see there is a float, and that top float is the float for the alarm system. So once the water gets to that level, that's what activates the audible and the visual alarm. And then right underneath that float, you'll see a check valve. And that check valve is simply to keep the water that's on the drain field side and not come back into the lift station or back into the septic tank. So the float that's located right here is the actual float that's connected to the sump pump itself. So when that pump rises to a certain level, it turns the sump pump on. Once the pump pumps out the water, the float drops back down, and then that shuts off the sump pump. So what I'm probably going to do here is test the riser, and if the check valve is working properly the way it's supposed to, I probably will just unscrew the entire riser from the sump pump. I believe this is an 1.5 inch pipe, so it's an 1.5 inch riser, and I believe it has just a male connection on the end. I'll just unthread that from the sump pump and then just reuse this riser on the new pump that I'm going to go get at Home Depot. But again, I will verify that the check valve is working properly before I do that. So after a quick trip to Home Depot, I got a new sump pump. This sump pump is a 3rd horsepower. It's just strictly replacing the one that was already there. It runs off of 110 volts. It has an 1.5 inch female port connection. And then my riser is an 1.5 inch male connection, so it will thread directly into the sump pump. There's no real reason to use Teflon tape or anything like that, since this is all going to be submerged underwater. So the fact that it might not be, watertight is really not an issue here. When I do get it snugged up, I'm going to take my channel lock pliers and just tighten it down a little bit. You do want to be careful because the base of the sump pump and the pipe are all plastic, and you don't want to crack anything. So just snug it up the best you can. Here I'm just going to take a zip tie just to fasten one of the floats to the bottom portion of the riser. Now, this was a mistake on my part. This is the second time I've had to replace this sump pump. They last about 10 years. The original one had an independent float. The float did not come with the pump itself, and that's this float here. I could just totally disregard this float. I don't know why I keep installing it and putting it back on, just not paying attention. But this float absolutely does not operate anything. Like I said, some sump pumps don't have floats, so you have to have an independent float, which is what this originally was. So even though I'm installing it back here at the bottom, it's really not used or not being used for anything. So once I get that zip tied back on, I'll be able to lower it. I'm also going to have to zip tie the electrical up the riser. But before I do that, I'm going to have to use some electrical fish tape and fish tape it through the top of the riser so it can come out where all the other electrical connections are coming out and tying into the outlets here next to the alarm. And so that's what I'm going to do next, is just use some fish tape to fish tape the electrical outlet and get it tied into the original outlet. With the electrical connection now out of the lift station, I can now take and just start slowly lowering the sump pump down into the lift station. And again, I'm just being cautious not to tangle up any of the electrical cords or any of the float cords. And as I'm lowering it down, I'm just going to slowly pull the slack as I go, just to make sure that nothing gets tangled up. And once I get it settled all the way down, or at least down far enough, then I'll come back and put the alarm float back on the pump riser. And I'm going to do that just like I did the lower float. I'm just going to take a zip tie and zip tie the alarm float probably about 3/4 of the way up the pipe riser. I'm using plastic zip ties here, but you probably could or probably should spend a little extra money and probably use some stainless steel band clamps to go around here, because in the black water, yeah, I just don't know how well the plastic zip ties are going to hold up versus just having a stainless steel band clamp on there. Now all that's left to do is just make sure that the sump pump is just sitting on the bottom of the lift station, and then just go ahead and line up your union, and then I can go ahead and make this union connection here just like I took it off in reverse order, and I'll just hand tighten it. Once I get it hand tightened, I'll use the pipe wrench and go ahead and tighten it down. And again, you know, you're dealing with plastic here, so you just want to be careful you don't over tighten it and crack anything. So now for the moment of truth, we can go ahead and plug in the sump pump. And then as you can see, I don't know if you can see from the video, but the water level is now lowering significantly faster than it was with the submersible pump. So the sump pump is running. I did have a little bit of a leak there at the union, and once I get it pumped out, I did go back and tighten that down. But again, you know, it's leaking a little bit, but it's only going to pump itself back out. So, but that's pretty much it. You know, the pump's running. It's pumping the black water up into my elevated drain field or leach field. I live here in Central Florida, so due to the soil absorption rate, since we're pretty much in a swamp, our drain fields have to be elevated with a lot of sand underneath it, so the black water can percolate back down through the soil and then eventually end up back into the aquifer or the water table. So that's just how things are done here where I'm located. I hope this video helps you out if you ever have to replace your sump pump. It's definitely a dirty job, but it's something that is definitely a DIY project. Well, that's going to wrap up this video. I hope this video helps you out in your project, and if it did, then please leave it a thumbs up. If you're new to the channel and you like DIY and woodworking projects, then I invite you to subscribe to the channel. It's free and painless. And I'd also ask that you hit that bell icon. That way you'll be notified of all our upcoming videos. I'll also leave links in the video description below to all the equipment that we used on this project. To all my existing subscribers, I really appreciate all the support you've given this channel. Again, I'm Rick with the Ingrain Workshop. We'll see you next time. Have a wonderful day, and God bless.